And so those are my reasons why I 100% believe that Mr. Bean could be Jean-Claude Van Damme in a street fight.
Yeah.
I mean, facts are facts.
I'm pretty sure that he could probably take Steven Seagal, too.
Oh, who could just throw him a cheeseburger?
Oh, hey, everybody.
Hey.
Oh. Thank you for joining Scream Freaks yet again. Crap, I think we're on episode 18 now.
Yeah,
Holy
18 going
moly.
on 42.
Right. Winding down for season 1. This is odd to me. I mean, it's an honor that everybody's listening, and that I have great co-hosts that can help carry the show more than 5 minutes.
Amen to that. Not pointing any fingers, Ethan.
No. So today's episode is we're steering away from the funny horror movies. We're getting back into the meat and potatoes of what the horror genre is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Psychological thriller, just keeps you on the edge of your seat. And today's episode is the the Autopsy of Jane Doe. Yeah, I started thinking of Breaking Benjamin.
Right. With Brian Cox and Emil Hirsch.
Yes.
Brian Cox, if you don't know the name, Google it because you know the face. He's been in so many different things.
Yes.
Same with Emil Hirsch.
Yeah.
He's been in a lot of stuff.
This movie started out innocent enough.
Yeah.
It was a family-owned funeral home. It was a father and son that was running it. Of course, the son had a girlfriend, and the dad kept trying to get him to be with his girlfriend more often than being in the mortuary. So, at the very beginning of the movie, I mean, this, we find this out later, but anyways, at the very beginning of the movie, the cops of this little town show up at this murder scene, really. And they there was no forced entry, there was nothing. It was a very odd situation that these people had died.
Yeah, everyone's dead, and then then they find this body,
and they find claw marks on trying to get out. So then they go down to the basement and they find this half-buried Jane Doe.
Yep.
So, the cops are completely and totally clueless because this girl is clean. Like, essentially, it looked like she had just taken a shower and then died, you know? So they take her to this mortuary with his father and son, and the son is supposed to go out with his girlfriend, but he decides he's going to stay with his dad.
Yeah, let's see where he'll be done by 11, he tells his girlfriend.
Right.
And the rest of the night I'm yours.
Right. So things just started taking a really weird turn when they started.
Yeah, the cops tell him that we need you to figure out a cause of death by morning.
Yeah. I mean, and this essentially, I mean, this body, this Jane Doe, doesn't move the entire movie.
No. Kudos to that actress.
Not at all. I mean, they just, so they start processing this girl and they find all of these weird things going on.
Yeah. Well, first thing first, I think they find that her tongue was cut out.
Yeah. They found that the first thing was her eyes. Her eyes were clouded.
Yeah.
So they were like gray. So they were kind of freaked out over that. So then they opened up her mouth, and that's whenever they saw the tongue was cut out. Mm-hmm. But as they were processing a little bit more, a fly comes out of her mouth.
Out of her mouth or out of her nose?
Oh, out of her nose.
Out of her nose.
Yeah, and she started bleeding from her nose as if she was still alive. Mm-hmm. So, once again, if you're worried about spoilers, this is not the show for you, because we offer spoilers here on Screen Freaks.
We're like that carton of milk that's been in the back of your fridge since Thanksgiving. Spoiled.
So they start processing her a little bit more, after the bee, and then they find the string in her mouth, and things start really going sideways for them, because the son turns around and there's a big pool of blood at the bottom of the refrigerator where they're keeping all these specimens and stuff. And I'm like, and the only one that's dripping is Jane Doe's vial. So it was like, I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. So what's going on with that? I thought that maybe she was going to come back to life or something like that.
Yeah. Same here. Like throughout the whole movie, I always just kept expecting her to, just like sit up, move, grab somebody, something.
Or a finger twitch, maybe something. Man. So, they go ahead and, and they scalp her, flay her open, and she's laying there on the table, just completely, just everything exposed. But she bled as if she had just died.
But it wasn't just when they opened it up. There was like the stuff they were putting, like realizing that both her ankles were like shattered, but there was no.
And her wrists.
But there was no like visible trauma to the outside of the bodies that you would think there'd be bruising, something, but no. And even like you said, when they opened her up, internal organs there was like scarring,
stab marks,
like scarring and shit like that on the it's like just, it was like the outside of her body was with the aside from the tongue being cut out,
right,
there appeared to be nothing. There was like no trauma to the outside of the body just looking at it,
right.
But when they opened everything up, it was just like, it was like someone who had been in a fucking car wreck, or something.
Well, let me go ahead and backtrack real quick. So there was something that I should have outlined at the very beginning, that most funeral homes and mortuaries, it's a standard practice because of putting bells on the toes of the dead, because sometimes way back in the 17 and 1800s, they weren't completely dead, so they would put bells on their toes, so if they decided they were going to come back to life, you heard them.
Yeah.
So
kind of just a little similar but off track. That's kind of like in the old cemeteries, they used to, when they would bury somebody, they would have that tube go down with that string or that rope attached to a bell above. Yep. So if they weren't dead and they were to come to, they could ring that bell. Yeah. And someone would hear it. And there was always somebody who would stay in the graveyard cemetery overnight. Hence the term graveyard shift.
Right.
From someone that would sit out there listening for bells.
Yeah.
And if a bell comes, then, they notify whoever and they dig the person up. But just, that's what the bells on the toes just kind of made me think like that, How the bells they were used in the old days like that.
So they went ahead. I mean, she didn't have a bell on her toe, but the other bodies that were in the mortuary did. So the son, he had heard I guess he had heard a noise or something out in the hallway, and he goes out into the hallway and he looks up into the mirror and he sees a corpse walking down the hallway.
Yes, yeah.
And he kind of gets freaked out and he goes around the corner and there's nothing there. So he hears a little bit more noise. He goes a little bit further and he found his mom's cat. Well, his mom had passed away, according to the story of the movie. But so they found the mom's cat, but the mom's cat was not in a good place. Mm-hmm. So the dad came in, being that it was his late wife's cat. the only humane thing to do was to put it down. Yeah. And the only way to do that at that particular moment was to break its neck. Mm-hmm. So, and being that they're in a mortuary, they had a crematorium right there. So they just put the cat in the crematorium and then went back to Jane Doe. So they started getting back into cutting her open, and they found in her, was it her stomach or her intestine?
It was in the stomach.
The flower.
Yeah. That was. Yeah, I think it was in the stomach.
So the flower was used centuries ago.
I can't remember the name of the flower now. I was trying to think of like gypsum something.
Yeah, something like that. But it causes paralysis. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, did they just like cut open
a person who was alive?
Yeah. Right. And I'm like, holy crap, no, that's crazy. So, they continue on and they find this one was in the intestine, was that, also backtracking. One of her teeth was missing. So in her lower intestine, they found this piece of cloth that had a tooth wrapped up in it.
It was almost like burlap kind of, like material.
Well, they were able to match up the string that was in her mouth and the cloth in her lower intestine was hers, and then they verified that the tooth that was in that little sack was her tooth. So I'm like, oh, what's going on here? What is this? Why? So they open it up, and you see like all of this witchcrafty looking writing and stuff,
symbols and
right. Dude, I mean, it got scary. I mean, it like downright scary. So things started happening. The radio came on and started, talking about some storm that was coming through, and started, talking about you're never going to leave or you're never going to get out of here or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God.
But if you don't leave, if you don't leave now, it'll be too late. And
Yep. So I was like, okay. This is getting interesting. They found like dirt underneath of her nails, underneath of her toenails, in her skin. Mm-hmm. And I'm like in between like the muscle and her skin. And I'm like, what the hell? And
it was like inside of her body. Was this
right. Dirt. So they start like whenever the radio did that thing. What isn't this about the time that all the lights shattered? Or would that would have been a little bit later. So I remember or was it they heard the bell. They heard the bell in the hallway.
Oh, the other thing, the song on the radio was like from I want to say it was from like a Flintstones. It was like Pebbles.
Okay.
It was a song, one of the Flintstones episodes when, Pebbles was older.
Right.
And it was something like she sung. I remember hearing something about that's what that was from.
So I was like, and then we heard the bells outside the door, and they, the door locked. Then they tried to get out with the axe, and he cut the hole into the door. And then they heard the bell.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they saw through that hole in the door that they just chopped, there was a corpse that was walking towards them. Yeah. And it was like, oh man, there's so much going on in this movie.
There was, it was pretty much once it like kind of started, it didn't let up with the mind fuckery.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It just like every little thing they were doing, just kind of. So many times I was just like shaking my head, like, "Well, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here?"
What's happening? What is this?
It just doesn't make sense. How is that possible? All that kind of shit.
Right? Yeah. I was the same way, and watching it.
It definitely kept you engaged.
It did. From the beginning all the way till the end. I mean, even the very last scene scared the holy living crap out of me.
Yeah.
So it was like, and for me, the reason why that very last scene scared me is because it's on a personal note. Yeah. I put that in the group chat. So
Right.
So, this whole entire movie continues on where they're trying to do this autopsy on this Jane Doe, and at one point her whole skin fillets open, and it's like all of this writing that was on like that scene.
Tattoos on the inside of the skin, inside the body.
Right.
Yeah, that's what it kind of looked like.
Yeah.
And they matched that damn
the little burlap sack thing. Yeah.
They had the board with all this shit up there. And
so the storm was raging outside, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, we've had enough of this. This is scary." The lights, they crashed and blew up on them. They were in the dark for a few minutes. So they ran out. They went up the stairs, tried to get out through the escape hatch. And
that's when there's like a branch that's across that it can't open the door.
Yeah.
And you can clearly see when they crack the door open, it's just rain and lightning. And it looks like it is storming like hell outside.
Right. So they at that point, they come downstairs because they can't, and they're trying to get out of this place because the elevator is broken. It's not working, and the dad gets struck by one of these corpses or ghost or whatever.
Yeah.
And his son went to help him out, and it was just like, one thing after the next, and then they heard that the elevator did their little ding whenever it gets down to the bottom floor, and they're like, oh my gosh, yeah. So they go back to the elevator, and they're in the elevator, and they go ahead and they see down this dark corridor what they think is this corpse walking towards them.
But I know we already told them about spoilers and all, but
yeah,
let's save some mystery for them. That one part, let's not necessarily say who the person is when they think, it's the corpse. Yeah. Just leave it. We'll just, we'll just leave that. Say that it wasn't a corpse, there was someone, but we won't give it away who someone was.
Okay, yeah.
Just to leave a little surprise for someone if they do go and watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to take away from the mystique of the movie, because, it definitely is worth the watch.
Right, because we want them to have at least some of the oh shit moments.
And going back to that whole personal thing that I put in the chat, so the name of this funeral home was Tilden Family Funeral Home. So I'm like, oh, why does that name sound familiar? And then I remembered my mom grew up in a refurbished funeral home on Tilden Avenue in Chardon, Ohio. And I just got chills from that last scene. I'm like, holy crap, what the hell? Yeah. This is like... But, I'm not going to spoil the end of the movie. The end of the movie does have a lot more twists and turns.
Yeah. But the one point we're talking about when they're with the elevator and they think it's a corpse coming, and they react. I think he has the axe.
Yes.
They react with the axe to defend themselves against this corpse. And as we were saying, we're not going to tell you who, but it's not a corpse.
Right.
It's a person.
Yeah.
But in their minds, some reason they were thinking and seeing this dead body, reanimated body coming towards them, which it just adds to the oh shit.
Yeah. Now, this movie was, in my opinion, I was blindsided by it because it was just that good. I mean, it was...
Honestly, I'm surprised it took me as long as it did to finally watch this movie because, I get on YouTube and I'll watch those, 10 best, 20 best horror movies that you've got to see. Fuck, Autopsy of Jane Doe was on every one of these lists.
Yeah.
It wasn't just on these lists. It was in the top 5.
Yeah.
Of every list I freaking saw.
Yeah.
So I'm like, finally one day I'm like, you know what? I'm going to find this movie. I need to fucking watch this movie.
I put it on this list for that very same reason, because that was just like, everybody that I saw was like, this has got to be the movie of the year.
Yeah. And I like Brian Cox as an actor. He's good in shit that he's in. And Emil Hirsch is good too, but I really like Brian Cox.
Yeah. Brian Cox is, he's been around forever. I mean,
full side note too about that. You know who was originally cast for Brian Cox's part to play the dad?
No, who?
Martin Sheen.
Really?
Yeah, but scheduling conflict, couldn't do it. Brian Cox come in and replaced him.
I think Brian Cox was a better choice, though. I mean, Martin Sheen. I like Martin Sheen. Martin Sheen is more of an authority figure.
I think Martin Sheen could have pulled it off, but as I said, I like Brian Cox, and I think Brian Cox did really well on it, and I like the choice of him.
And if he hadn't already passed, I think another one would have been really good was Donald Sutherland would have been really good in that role.
Yeah.
Obviously, rest in peace, but
I think I always thought it would have been because of the fact that they were portraying father-son.
Yeah.
They should have had Judd Hirsch play the dad.
Judd Hirsch? Okay.
You know who Judd Hirsch is, right?
Yeah, I know who Judd Hirsch is.
As far as I know, I'm pretty sure that's Emil Hirsch's dad.
Really?
I think so.
Okay. Huh.
Hirsch, that's not a common name. Hirsch. It means even spelled the same way. I'm fairly certain that Judd Hirsch is his dad.
Oh, let me go ahead and check that out. Hold on a second.
Or they're related to. But even if they're not actually related, I think it'd just be ironic to have Judd Hirsch and Emil Hirsch.
Absolutely.
Father-son, with them sharing the same last name. But
let's see. Hirsch.
But yeah, the movie is just it's intense. It's one of those ones. It wasn't like just like scary, you know what I'm saying, type movie, but
right.
It was very ominous and creepy, and just the creepy, freaky level of it was off the charts. It was just even when nothing was happening, there was still this foreboding, ominous feeling about
right.
What the fuck was happening.
There was a presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care if it just showed them sitting there drinking a cup of coffee. There was just something eerie and ominous about the whole thing, just the vibe and feelings that it came up. It came through with.
It was to me, now that I think about it, and we were just discussing this movie as well, the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
I had the same feeling for Blair Witch Project.
You just, this overwhelming feeling of like dread.
Yes.
You don't necessarily know why.
And to me, it was just it got the adrenaline pumping.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next, kind of thing. So
it wasn't over the top with the creepiness, but it was done perfectly.
Right, exactly. I agree. So, if you're on YouTube and you see a bunch of these lists and stuff where people are saying that the Autopsy of Jane Doe is in their top 5 for that year or for all time for that matter, I would intend to agree.
Yeah, there's a reason for it.
Yeah,
this movie. There's another movie that maybe something we can down the road can do. If you've never seen it, look it up. It's called Last Shift.
I think I've seen.
It's about the woman. Yeah. She's the police officer, and this particular police station, they're shutting it down, and they're moving to a new police station. It's technically the last night that it is open, and she's working by herself, and just it's very similar. There's just like
a lot of dread,
freaky, creepy, weird shit happens.
Yeah.
There was like this serial killer that that they had caught that was brought in. He was like the last big thing, got brought into that particular office, and I think he might even like somehow committed suicide. There in this.
Wow.
But much the same feelings, that this movie gave me, I got from that last shift. So look that up.
You bring, stuff like that, the creepy stuff going on, in the last, shift. I had, similar circumstances whenever I worked for the Ecklers at the old Ecklers building here in Titusville. Well, I was working late one night. I was in the graphics department on the second floor, and the boardroom light kept turning itself on. Mm. And I'm like, okay, so I would walk over, I would turn it off. I would come back to my seat, sit back down, continue to work. At one point, I actually heard something whisper next to my ear, and I turned around and there was nobody there.
Yeah.
So I look up, and that boardroom light was on again.
Yeah. See, a lot of us have had experienced that.
Yeah.
At one point or another. And I think that's why a movie like this kind of touches on that.
Yeah.
Because you're watching this, but then it makes you think about this weird, creepy, freaky shit that you can't really 100% explain,
kind of hits a little bit close to home.
Exactly. And I like those kind of movies. I mean, sure, yeah, the old hack 'em up slasher,
right.
Gore movies. Yes, they're fun. But,
right.
I don't, like as much as, I'm a massive, Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees.
Yeah.
I'm team Jason Voorhees all the way. I'm getting the mask tattooed on me
right
at some point. But I never considered or thought of those movies as scary. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You had some jump scare moments, but that's just human nature. Something unexpected happens. You kind of jump. Oh shit! Yeah. But there was nothing scary about these kind of movies.
Unsettling.
They're unsettling. They're unnerving. They're creepy. They make you think.
And they're mental.
Right. They make you think. They're like, oh man. Well, this could very well happen to me. I could,
yeah.
Or again, like you've had an experience that this makes you think about and remember, and those are the kind of movies I like. That's why, like you said, the Blair Witch, The Last Ship, Autopsy of Jane Doe. These kind of movies. Sinister was one of those ones that did that to me. Just had that ominous kind of feel about it.
Brianna and I did the White Noise movie.
Yeah.
And for the time, it had that very unsettling feeling, just like it does now.
Those are the kind of movies I like that make you feel like
a psychological thriller. And basically what it is, and there was not a second that I wasn't sitting on the edge of my seat watching this movie. It was just that good. So with that being said, go watch the goddamn movie.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely.
And then go ahead, especially if you're listening to this now, go watch the movie. Turn this off right now. Turn it off. Go watch the movie. It's free on Tubi. And you can go and you can sit there and you can experience everything that we just, got through talking to you about. So I would like to say thank you, Bill, for once again being in the studio with me, and thank you all for listening to Scream Freaks. Thank you for all the subscriptions. If you like this stuff, please like and subscribe it, especially on YouTube. It helps us to do more.
Share the video with your friends. Post it on YouTube.
Exactly.
On Facebook.
Yep.
All that good stuff.
And on Spotify, I'm getting a lot of traction on Spotify, so nice. I really appreciate that. So once again, thank you for tuning into Scream Freaks, and until the next time, stay spooky, everybody.
That's right. Creep out.